Welcome to TFR This Feels Right podcast. On every episode, we're sharing impactful communication skills that you need or didn't even know you needed until you listen to this episode. I'm your host, Joel Silverstone. And if these episodes feel right, then please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button below. And this is a show about communication skills, so let's make this interactive. Feel free to comment and we'll respond. All right, let's get to our next episode on TFR This Feels Right podcast.
It's going, and so I'll just start speaking a little louder than normal.
Nice. I love that. Where did you learn that?
Partly just from things I was observed from others, but I also, at your event, I learned a few exercises there. And then likewise, I also saw a Jack Black rendition of what he does. And I don't do it like he does. He goes through some vocal exercises where he's doing rhymes, and I don't have the rhymes memorized enough to actually do that, but he did it quite well. So that was impressive what Jack Black did.
Yeah, that's great because you're warming up your tongue and you're warming up your voice. I love that.
Yes.
Well, welcome to TFR This Feels Right podcast. We begin now. Roger, obviously you look like you're ready. How are you feeling about talking about leadership and communication skills?
Feeling phenomenal.
And I love this. Our title, which you came up with, is going to be It's Not About You. So before I ask any further questions, let me just say, how did you come up to the idea? How'd you come up with this idea that the title for this podcast, this episode about leadership and communication skills should be called It's Not About You? What was your thoughts
Because
behind that?
there's a few things. One, as a leader, I think sometimes we're seen as the one with the vision, the direction. We're at the front of everything, trying to say, here's where we're going next. But at the same time, I think what it is we need to consider that as a leader, we're oftentimes best as the servant to the others, helping others succeed. And when we can turn around and look at our team and see, okay, what is it that they need from me to be successful? Is it additional tools, additional resources? Maybe it's some additional team members. What can I do to ensure their success? Because their success is mine. And so if I can just turn around for a moment, knowing where we're headed and see how is everyone equipped and doing to achieve whatever goal we have, I think I can be a better leader serving those on my team to enable them to be successful. Their success is my success.
I love that their success is my success. At the same time, that's hard to do because you see so many, we'll call them, emerging leaders or rising leaders, and they're so focused on what are people going to think of me. So how did you figure this out? Like, where was there a point where you go, hang on, it's not about me, it's actually about them?
It became a reality for me when I
Mhm.
noticed that I'm running faster than everyone else. I've got great ideas. I'm coming up with things that we need to be working on. And as I turn around to my team to implement them, I all of a sudden realize they're still working on the last idea that I have. They haven't finished
Right.
that. And so they're confused. Do I continue to work on the idea that I was given a week ago, or do I now pause that and begin with this other thing that was brought to my attention? And so I was confusing my support team. I was confusing the people that I was leading. And I realized maybe I need to stop for a moment because I'm just running too fast, turn
Mm.
around and see, okay, where is it that things are being bogged down? Or where is it that people may not have the clarity or the vision, the tools, the resources to achieve what I thought they ought? And so I need to pause, turn around, and go back and kind of go amongst the troops and figure out, okay, where can I provide some additional support? Maybe it's encouragement, maybe it's training, maybe it's some additional tools and resources. Well, all of a sudden, what I'm doing is I'm furthering ensuring their success because again, we're not going to
Mhm.
be able to move faster than the slowest person on the team. And so maybe I need to change them or I need to change them. I may need to get rid of them, but how about I invest a little bit of time and effort in to
Yeah.
seeing if I can actually help them rise to the occasion. And if I can do that, then we're all going to succeed.
Roger, I think you said the magical word in that, and that was to pause because I'm from Canada, but I think we all know Wayne Gretzky, and Wayne
Mm-hmm.
Gretzky would say he could see the game happening in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that pause is what I'm hearing you say, which is you have the vision so you can see things happening really fast, but you need to slow it down so that you're able to see where the gaps are with your team or what as you said, what is it that they need to focus on. Um, was there like a moment that was there like a moment in your career that you recognized that you were going faster than everyone else or that you needed to take that pause?
Perhaps some specific moments, but in general,
Mm-hmm.
it's when my people would come back to me and just say, I'm still working on the last thing that you suggested, or it
Mm-hmm.
was more important that they're saying that I can rattle off things quicker than they could do them. And all of a sudden, it just became apparent. I'm clearly able to visualize and see where we need to be heading, but for whatever reason, I'm going quicker than the people. And
Yeah.
maybe it's just me. Maybe it's the fact that I'm demanding more of individuals than they're perhaps capable. But it's just realizing that maybe they don't have the vision, the foresight, and they're stuck with the day to day. And so I just need to be patient, more patient than I think I have in the past. And
Mm.
when I realize as a leader that I may have more experience, I may have more tolerance, I may have more skill that I'm working with, and it's not to say that others don't have better or more. It's just the fact that I need to be patient, like you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Put that pause on. Um, so again, because this is always so challenging to do this when for that emerging leader or even someone who's been in a leadership role for a long time, maybe doesn't have that self-awareness that you really have developed. What would you suggest to like another leader on how they could develop that self-awareness? What might be some of the clues or some of the things that you might see that they could sort of trigger that self-awareness?
Communication. It's
Hmm.
basically being willing to listen and ask. And if you're willing to
Mm,
actually speak with individuals and come down to their level, I think you're going to find out what's going on. And sometimes it's hard when you're out front leading, you're pushing forward, you're moving ahead, and you're hoping everyone's staying up.
yeah.
Sometimes it's important to do, like you mentioned, pause, step back, and kind of go back amongst the troops and figure out what's essentially going on and deal with the reality of the situation. Because what I've learned is everything takes longer than expected. That's one of the realities that
That's
I've
great.
come to accept.
Yeah.
And understanding that things take admittedly longer than I anticipated, I need to go back and figure out where I can help. I need in order to move forward, I can't have kind of undone things. I need to go back and kind of tie things up, if you will. And so what I'll do is go back, and it begins with rapport. As a leader, I need to
Yeah.
understand what motivates these people, what interests these people, what drives these people, so that I can properly not manipulate, but encourage them.
Influence.
Influence. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, because a lot of times people say, I want to influence without authority. So I want to, I'm in finance and I need to speak to HR and I want to be able to, I don't necessarily have an authority over them, but I want to be able to influence them. So I think what
Mhm.
you're saying is when we can build that rapport and communicate and have better understanding. And I think you have a Stephen Covey kind of quote that you like to use about that.
Yes, it is. It's basically no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. But I'm going to add another one since you brought
Hmm.
that up.
Yeah.
Is basically it's the win-win. You want to have this win-win-win philosophy, and if you can find out essentially what motivates or how that other person is maybe managed or gauged, find out what their win is, and see if you can help them actually achieve what's important to them. And so,
Yes.
yeah, going back to the previous one that I mentioned, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. It's just basically pausing for a moment instead of barking out instructions and directions, just kind of standing back and figuring out. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you? How did you
Yeah.
get on the team? How long have you been here? What do you like about this? And all of a sudden, it just becomes a little bit more personable. And I think people can appreciate the fact that they're not just another number; they're an individual within the team. And then all of a sudden, you can start to learn a little bit of how they're motivated and what matters to them, and then you're able to better manage them.
Well, this is all the stuff that AI can't do.
Yes.
So that's really important. And that's a good thing to remember is that this is what an email can't do. I mean, an email can do this, but that connection that you're speaking about to really be genuinely interested in them and that they feel that they're genuinely interested creates a lot of trust, creates that rapport, which is so important. Which again, I think goes back to I think you mentioned earlier you were influenced by this Second World War Paul Harvey, this radio
Yeah.
show. Yeah, maybe share a little bit about that.
Well, Paul Harvey, he was known for this idea of now you know the rest of the story was his phrase. And it was essentially
Hang on.
going
No,
down,
no, say it's like it's in the radio show.
now you know the rest of the story.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah, when you know the rest of the story, the
Mhm.
idea is Paul Harvey was able to give us a little bit of backstory, some insights, some side peripheral type things that are, you have a commonly known historical event, you have a situation that people are familiar with, but you don't know the goings on around it, what led up to
Hmm.
it, why it happened. And I think that's important as it relates to business. When you're trying to work with individuals, if you can answer the question because,
Yeah.
you can get so much further. There was a study I was made aware of a number of years ago where they actually did this thing with a copy machine in an office, and they essentially said, I want you to go to the front of the line and just butt ahead of everyone else in the queue and copy these for us. And they did a test, and the first group of people were just going to the front of the line asking, hey, I need to get these copies done. Can I jump ahead of everybody else? I need to get these done. Well, the number of people that were allowed to go ahead was far fewer than those that in the second set of individuals went into the group and said, I need to get these copies made. Can I go ahead of everyone? It's for the boardroom meeting that's going on right now for the president of the company, and they just need these 10 papers copied real quickly. They found that when you can answer the question of because,
Yes.
you're able to actually make a bigger difference because they now understand where this matters in the whole scheme of things. And it allows you to express urgency. It
Yeah.
allows you to impart a little bit more of context of why this matters. But the other thing that I think is really helpful here is you're able to now express a little bit of kind of purpose. Here's what's happening here. I just needed copies because I just want copies. This person needs copies because there's a meeting going on and there's an urgency about it. Yeah, sure, go right ahead. That's perfectly fine. So it's if you're able to communicate the because to your people, they'll be able to better see how they fit into the bigger scheme of things, how they are part of the bigger whole. And that then all of a sudden empowers them to realize that what they do matters and it does make a difference.
Oh, Roger, I love that word because that's my favorite word. One, well, as you just said, everyone wants to have a sense of purpose in what they do. It's not just showing up and punching the clock and doing their job. They need to know that they're part of something. And as a leader, that's your role, not just to motivate them, but it's again reminding them the sense of the purpose and giving them the whole, sharing your vision. Because, like you said, a lot of leaders just hold on to that vision, but when you're able to articulate that vision and share it and give that sense of purpose, but also because is so important because, as I just use it, we expect people to be mind readers. That's probably one of the biggest miscommunication traps that happens is, didn't you know what I meant? Didn't you, like the copies, didn't you know I needed those 10 copies for the boardroom? Didn't you see that I had booked the boardroom and I needed those 10 copies?
Don't you
Like
know
the,
who I am?
yeah, don't you know who I am? Didn't you know this what was going on? Didn't you know I was overwhelmed with work? Like, it's always, didn't you know? And so using that word because is so important in the context. Even when you and I were speaking earlier, and I was asking you questions about your family and all that, and I realized, hang on, he's probably probably wondering where this is going. And I gave you the because in my mind, Utah is this place of family and outdoors, and that's why I'm asking you these questions. So it's catching ourselves that in our mind it might be very clear as to what we're asking, but the other person is always going, what's behind this? Is there an ulterior motive? Because if not, you're feeling like you're being interrogated.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the things that I think we fail to realize as leaders is too often, and I find I'm applying this to myself, is I
Hmm.
find myself too often just assuming they understand and know. Therefore, I'm
Hmm.
trying to be brief and to the point. And in that brevity, I'm just barking things out. I need this,
Right.
do this, hey, take care of this. And I'm not giving the context. And sometimes I need to step back and go, I want you to appreciate the fact that what you're doing matters. I'd like you to understand that what you're
Mm,
doing is so helpful. I'd like you to understand that what you just did made this so much easier. And I may not communicate that all the time. And so I'm just consciously trying to remind myself I need to be a little bit more transparent as to why
yes.
what they do matters.
That's such a good reminder for the leaders out there about, again, I think the theme for this is to take a pause and go, hang on, play it back. What just happened? Was I being brief? Did it come across like I was interrogating? Did it come across like I was barking orders? And just pausing, going, I'm asking this because, or I'm saying this because you matter. And this is why I want to, take this moment to recognize that. And it goes back to what again your quote about the stories that are not there. Um, and and so I think you did you borrowed like I borrowed the activity around 50 wins and did that with your team. Speaking
I
of
did.
stories. Yeah.
You showed this at a retreat that we were both at. You facilitated this exercise that I just was thoroughly impressed by. I learned so much from it, and I thought it was very impactful, especially as it relates to getting to know individuals on our team. And so I
Hmm.
have a business mastery group with whom I meet. I facilitated a group of business owners, and as we were doing this facilitation as a part of the activities for the retreat, I chose that I was actually going to do your exercise of my 50 wins. And I cannot tell you how well it met and exceeded my expectations. So many of the individuals there, not so many, every individual there participated and just hit a home run as it related to just being open and transparent and sharing a little bit of kind of who they are. And as I had them, like your exercise, go through and list out these things and narrow it down to one key thing that they felt was a core memory that impacted how they view life and deal with situations and interact with people, they then went ahead and each shared this thing. And it was hugely impactful, very emotional for many of us. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I think we all learned something unique about each person and were inspired by them. And I was able to, for each person, find a key word, a phrase that represented what that learning was for them as a core memory. And at the end, we just recapped what everyone had shared. And it was just one of these poignant moments where everyone felt as if they were so much more connected simply because they were able to open up and share a little bit of who they are.
Yeah. Um, Whether you do the activity or not, and it is such a great activity because it forces you to also think a bit about your life and do an inventory of your successes, but more importantly, what it took to achieve that success, to achieve that win.
Mhm.
But again, this is a good reminder to take that pause and realize that everybody does have a story that you're not aware of. But when we give permission, as you said, taking that pause to check in with them and find out what their story is, when we give them permission to share their story, it just creates such a huge connection and creates such trust.
Oh, it does. That was one of the words that came from it is trust. But just to point out what you said,
Yeah.
I emphasized listen. If you just
Mhm.
paused a little bit and listened to those around us, kind of notice, pay attention to the stories you could be hearing if you
Yeah.
just listened a little bit more. And the second thing I emphasized was everyone has a story and everyone truly has something to share. So if you can just kind of take a moment and listen, you'd be amazed at what you'll learn of the people around you.
It's so true. And people always think, oh, my story's not about that I didn't climb Mount Everest or I didn't go to space. But th those are not the interesting stories. The interesting stories are how you just overcame obstacles or challenges in your life. Those are the interesting stories, or how you found your voice.
Mhm. Very,
Um,
very true.
so I think I know a deep question I'm going to ask you towards the end of this podcast. But before we get there, one more question. So we've built the rapport with our team members.
Mhm.
As a leader, we've taken the pause. We found out their story. And so what do we do with all this information? I guess, to your point of what's next, or therefore what?
Well, the thing that I'd like to point out is, and people try to accomplish this with various personality assessments within an organization, but yes, I'd like to encourage you to kind of know what motivates the individuals. And there are different ones you can use. One that we use internally is color coding. The others that you might be familiar with are the Myers-Briggs, the DISC, and so forth. But the whole point of it is, can you identify for each of your employees what motivates them? And so
Hmm.
there's four key things that generally motivate an individual. And if you can isolate these, it allows you as a leader to better motivate the people you're interacting with. The first is time. Some people are motivated by time. If you could give me more time, I have
Mm,
other interests, family, hobbies that I'd love to do. So if I can get the job done early today and be paid for the full day and leave early, I'm all over hustling and getting this taken care of. Get this
right.
done by Thursday and you can have a 3-day weekend. I'm all over it. If I can't get Friday off, I'll still work Friday. I mean, it's just one of those things. The next is money.
Hmm.
Most people fall into this category in one way or another. But one of the things I want to point out is money is very important. If you said, work this Saturday and take care of this urgent thing that we need to do to finish this project or whatever, and instead of giving you a day off in the future, I'll give you $500. You might have somebody that just says, I'll be in Saturday 8 a.m. I'll be all over this. I'll stay until I get it done. And they're
Right.
motivated by money. The other happens to be recognition. Some people don't need the
Mm,
time. They wouldn't know what to do with it. Some wouldn't need the money. It would just go in the bank account and it wouldn't change their lifestyle. But recognition, the acknowledgement, the public awareness of this person did something for us as a team, for our customers that really stood out. They went above and beyond. What they did mattered. Some people really crave that attention and they want to know what they're doing is noticed. And so recognition can go a long, long way. Some people shy away from it. I'll do
Yeah.
this, but just give me the $100 and honestly, don't draw attention to me. I don't want the attention. I don't like people, kind of looking at me and so forth. But
Yeah.
then the fourth one is altruism. It's amazing how few people there are, but there are some that are motivated by altruism, which is to say, I don't need any additional time. I don't need any money. I don't need the recognition. In fact, I'd like to be in the shadows. And when I get my job done, I'd be happy to go help somebody else get their job done and help somebody else and help somebody else. I just want to know as an organization, we're all better. We're all doing well. And so they're willing to kind of go the extra mile, just helping around the team. And so finding ways in which they can step up and help. Hey, by the way, I know you're going to be done with this a little early. Would you be able to
Yeah.
help with this? I would love to. And so some of these people, it's the smallest of the groups, are really motivated by the fact that they can make the world a better place. And so that altruistic person has that place. So you've got time, money, recognition, and money or altruism.
Altruism. Yeah. Those are so good. It reminds me of a story of a leader that shared um, that somebody on the team had done an amazing job helping out some of the team. And there was like a big conference, everybody was getting hundreds of people from the company were getting together. And the leader, called out, we'll call this person Chris, and said, "Hey, I want to give a shout out to Chris. Chris went above and beyond, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." And then Chris went up to their manager afterwards and says, "I can't believe you did that to me. You threw me under the bus." It's like, why? I was saying your praise. Like, I don't want praise. I don't want to be recognized. Now everybody's coming up to me and I have to be on and I have to. So, altruism is so important. Like some people don't want recognition. They just want to know that they had a place in the world. And I love that that's an example of a motivation because we don't often think of that. And we
Mhm.
often think that people are uh, money is really important. But even behind money, there could be even another story. Like money could be there could be a subtext to that. Money could be about because they want more time, they want to have more hobbies, or they got them, there's a story behind they got themselves into debt,
Mhm.
or they're
That's right.
helping out a family member. Like there
Mhm.
could be there could be stories behind this, not just greed. It's there could be stories behind the money.
And the thing I'd add to this is
Mhm.
different people at different phases in their life may go through
Yes.
these. So don't peg someone as a personality trait to think that this is how they always are. You could have
Yes.
somebody that this quarter is motivated by time. They've got maybe a newborn in the family and they'd like to spend more time with the newborn, or they just ran into some financial distress and they would like to actually pay off some bills because of something unexpected. The car broke down, they needed new tires. All of a sudden, what's happening is this will come and go. So the motivation that they have today may be different 3 months from now. It could ebb and flow through these various things, but
Yeah.
you do have a kind of a core one. I mean, it's kind of like a personality trait. Some people are driven by recognition or money or time, but as a core thing, they do have life situations that may ebb and flow through there. If I just had an extra
Yeah.
weekday, I need that mental health day, right? There might
Yeah.
be that financial thing that I'm working on. I'd like to be noticed. I've been working here for 5 years. I just don't really think people appreciate what I'm doing around here. In fact, I've got some records that I've achieved in the company that nobody else has done, and yet nobody knows this. Well, let's make a big deal out of this. And so, how can we give that recognition where it's due? Those things will ebb and flow. But as a leader, I need to know what do I need right now as a carrot to put out to help you guys go the extra mile. And for
Yeah.
Tom, I need to do this. For Sally, I need to do this. But here's the beauty: whatever bonus, awards, spiff type thing you do this quarter, this month, it may not resonate with everyone, but it'd be nice to do a time thing this week and then a money thing next week and then
Right.
a recognition thing for the month. Just kind of ebb and flow through. And as a leader, not peg yourself to only one type of motivation. All of
Yeah.
your spiffs or motivations can't be one of the four. They can ebb through each of those as you work through your organization.
Again, it goes back, it all goes back to pausing, which is to recognize what does motivate this person. Like I've tried time, I've tried money. Oh wait, I haven't tried recognition.
That's
Uh,
right. It sometimes just takes testing.
yeah, it sometimes takes testing it out. And he said there's ebb and flow as to different times.
Mhm.
Um, and recognition for sometimes leaders will say, "Oh, I'm always telling my team, you rock or you're great." But that's not specific recognition. Like as you said, Tom might be thinking, I've accomplished all these awards and I've created all these records and my sales are, they want to hear specific, people want to hear specific recognition about what it is they did well so that they actually feel noticed.
Oh, yeah. And just to give it some context, realize you might have somebody that's really motivated by recognition. They'd like it, but at the end of the day, they can't take that home and pay a bill, or, they go home and
Right.
tell their spouse, hey, by the way, I was recognized as the employee of the month. And they're going to say, and,
Yeah, yeah,
and so you got
yeah,
your picture on the wall somewhere. And it
yeah,
meant a lot to the employee, perhaps, but at the same
right.
time, they may need to take home to the family something. Well, time. And they gave me the afternoon off, or they gave me
Yeah,
this weekend, they gave me a hotel room and you and I can go spend some time together. They gave me some money. I got this $500. It may not just be the employee, it might be the spouse that you're trying to actually say, hey,
sure.
by the way, your spouse coming into our company and doing what they do matters. And here's a way of saying thank you to you as a family for letting them come spend time with us. I don't know
Uh,
what the situation is, but the point is just be open to these types of things as you're running your organization.
Oh, Roger, that's a great example. You're the person you're talking to. Who's their audience? Who
Hmm.
who are they? Who do they report to? Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, this has been great. I love this idea of taking the pause, finding out what motivates them, and really being making sure that you connect with the people on your team, that you really build a rapport and you show them that you care. That again, it's not about you. It really is about them. Like feel confident about what you've got to offer. Know that you've got the vision, as you've said, and you know where you're going. That you can now put your energy onto building and supporting, so that we're all going towards the same. We're all going in the same direction, basically.
That's right. Their success is your success. So always look at it this way. It's one of three things: tools, training, or temperament. Do they have the
Mhm.
tools to do the work? Do they know how to use those tools? And temperament, do they have the attitude, the positive nature to come in and leave the drama at the door and get focused on what they need to do? And if those things are in place, you'll have somebody that can thrive in their role. If you as a leader can actually address those things and give them the things that they need to be successful, they'll help you be successful.
Brilliant. Very well said. Roger, if you're ready, I think I'd like to ask you the deep question here.
All right, bring it.
And because we were at the retreat together and we didn't get a chance to hear your 50 wins, I don't know if you could remember what maybe one of those three wins were, and maybe we could talk about one of those wins.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, I don't know my list. I don't have it here in front of me, but I do have one that I shared just over
Hmm.
the weekend with this
Yeah.
group. And I'm going to give it some context. Interestingly enough, everyone was very open and shared some traumatic experience that they had in their lives that was very emotionally draining, and yet it's something they rose from. And when we were finished, I noticed that everyone was very emotional with each of their stories. And I wanted to share, look, your core memory doesn't have to be some
Mm,
tragedy that you rose from. And I shared a positive one. So I'd like to share a positive one for me. It
great.
happened to be that when I was younger as a teenager, we lived on a hill where there was snow. And it wasn't uncommon that when it snowed outside, that cars could struggle getting up the hill. And I distinctly remember this one year when it was a heavy snow year. And this particular storm happened and the cars were struggling to go up the hill. My dad said, get your coats on, let's go outside and help these cars. And we did it on more than one occasion. But the point was, is I distinctly remember this opportunity to walk outside in the snow and literally push vehicles up the hill. And I don't know this, but in my
Hmm.
mind's eye, this is how I see it. I imagine one of those vehicles being someone that they knew better. They didn't need to go out that day. They didn't need to be out there in the snow, but they were getting off work and they couldn't leave early. They had to finish their shift and they're trying to just get home. And here they are alone in the car and their car's not going to make it. And what are they going to do? If they can't get out and push it, what are they going to do? And they're backing up traffic. To have someone come out and selflessly help them get up the hill, push them up the hill, and literally get them over the hump of that hill was, I think, a great relief to them because they were concerned and struggled driving in the snow like it was. And
Right.
so I'm imagining a family trying to get home in the weather. I'm imagining somebody that maybe needed to be out and about simply because of something urgently, and they didn't want to leave their home, the warmth of their house, but here they are on the street going through the snow, and here I am with my father and brothers pushing them up the hill. What did I learn from that? It's selflessness can be so helpful. If you can just step outside of yourself and get outside of your comfort zone and help other people, it's amazing what you can do to make the world a better place and how you can make someone else's day so much better. I could have stayed in the house. I could have stayed in the warmth of the
Yeah.
home, looking
Yeah.
through that window and just watched and laughed and chuckled and said, hey, 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 funny, funny, and just
Yeah.
saw this happen as it just unrolled before my eyes. But otherwise, I could have gone out there and made a difference. And I'm glad that my father encouraged me on that and other occasions to step outside outside, go out in the snow and push these vehicles up the hill. And I'd like to think I did make a difference for not just one, but many individuals that day.
Roger, it's like this whole episode has just come full circle with that story. Selflessness about pushing someone to get over the hill. That's what basically this entire episode has been about pushing your team members, your employees, about helping them get over that hill, like realizing whatever it is that they needed to be motivated to get over that hill. It's like the story has it's like a full circle as to what has just happened. Now, of course, you did do this before there was mobile phones, before there was Instagram and TikTok, where you could have been filming them going backwards.
Yes, I am that old that there was no way to do what you just described. Yes, it was when I was a teenager, and so clearly this was back in the early '80s, mid '80s, and in fact, I can tell you the year it was '83. So there you go.
That being said, I'm joking, but obviously you still would have been that same person because obviously it's in your DNA to be that person to do that, and your family obviously is also it has the same DNA about doing that together, which is sounds like it's again what you're creating at the culture you're creating at Universal Accounting, which leads me now to ask where can we find out more about you or connect with you and Universal Accounting?
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, LinkedIn. Love to connect with each of you. You can just go to LinkedIn, send me a message, indicate in the note section that you had heard us on here, the show, and I'd love to make that connection. Second would be to go to universalaccounting.com. At universalaccounting.com, we have a number of free resources, especially for business leaders and owners. In the free resource section, you can find some ebooks, some white papers, some different resources that I would encourage you to take advantage of as it relates to running a successful company. Highly recommend those things there. And as I mentioned, they are free. And then you can also find podcast information. It's a show I host called Building the Premier Accounting Firm. Love to have you listen in and hear what those episodes are. Excellent discussions, wonderful guests. And so there's a number of topical things that you can hear. And we have in that navigation a highlight section where you can find some playlists that you can binge listen as well.
A wealth of information available there, resources. So that is great. Roger, thank you so much for being a guest on TFR. This feels right.
Well, thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation. And always remember this, if it's about business, it is universal.
Terrific.